Okay, I'm really pleased to be here today to talk to you all. Hopefully you'll enjoy the presentation and you might ask me some questions throughout it when I ask you them. But this speech is hopefully going to be a mind-blowing speech, hence the picture, called Invisibly Different. Now, I'm on Twitter, and if you want to follow me, the reason why is I've posed a question on there. I've asked, in general, do you think you manage patients' families' expectations at the start of the assessment process? If anyone's on Twitter, you could please answer that, because I'm trying to get some ideas on whether I can help facilitate a thought process in trying to improve that process. The reason I ask is because I recently gave a speech at Bush and Company Rehabilitation, and in one of the breakout sessions it occurred to me from talking to people that the time between injury to rehabilitation is overly lengthy. So that's why I've put the poll out there. So to get on with the story, right, February the 6th, 2010, I was 39, running round Chatsworth Gardens with a headache. I'd been very busy, I'd ignored the headache, but you know, just 24 hours later, this happened.
Kate Allatt from Dore in South Yorkshire had a severe brainstem stroke and then went on to develop locked-in syndrome. Doctors said she'd never walk or talk again, but the mother of three defied their predictions.
Right, okay, I had a brainstem stroke at 39. In official terms, it was occlusion infarction and dissection of the right pons. Quite severe, when I woke up from the coma, I wasn't able to move a single muscle. Not an eyelid, not a muscle, not a finger, not a foot, nothing. Yet, I was completely aware of everything going on around me. So assuming my head was pointed in the direction of the noise and the talk and the whatever, I could hear and understand it. But I couldn't give anybody a signal. I was able to do that. I was considered vegetative. In actual fact, my husband was told by the ICU clinician that I'd be better off dead in the first few days. Now, what was that like? Well, that was my actual injury of my brain scan there. A very substantial clot in the pons, which effectively, the brainstem is the control box of the body, so it controls everything. I couldn't breathe for myself, I couldn't do anything for myself. And what was it like? It was actually like, it's pretty awful this, waking up inside your own coffin. It's fairly graphic, I know, but you know, if you could imagine screaming inside your head that you're there, but no one's able to understand that you're actually able to understand everything going on around you. Buried alive, coffin. After 2 weeks, my friends, they used to come, they were convinced that I was conscious, contrary to the doctors. 2 weeks after my stroke, they came in with a letterboard. It was a cobbled together letterboard, a piece of white paper with the letters A to Z listed all the way down it. And my friend Jackie said, Kate, we know you're in there, because when they used to come and look at them coming through the door, I used to cry tears. No noise came out, just tears. The consultants didn't see this. So they brought this board in. One of them was to point to the letter. They told me to slightly blink, because 2 weeks on from my brainstem stroke, I got the tiniest flicker of a blink in my eye. And they said, right, blink once if the letter's no, blink twice if it's yes. Alison wrote it down. Started at A, all the way to S, blink twice. Back to A, all the way to L, blink twice. Back to A, all the way to E, blink twice. And thank God Jackie put me out of my misery, because at that point she said, sleep, and I blinked twice. And she said, can't sleep, and I blinked twice. And she said, at night, and I blinked twice. And it was like every Christmas had come at once. It was the most amazing feeling. That communication was just incredible. So the blinking was, that's what happened in the end. It was once for no, twice for yes. What also I had to deal with for 9 weeks in ICU, I had a trachea after 2 weeks. But like Christopher Reeve said, they used to just pop off. Now, bear in mind, this thing's breathing for you. This is life support. You know, when the lights are dimmed at night and the nurses are huddling in their little bay, like they did, with their coffees and their chat magazines, 8 times a week, this thing would just blow off. Now, why they don't stuck to you, I don't know. Because on top of the fear, the anxiety, the distress, the separation anxiety for my children, the worry, the indignity, the hallucinations, you know, I had to also deal with this. It might only take 10 seconds for the girl at the bottom of the bed to put it back on, but it was really scary when you know you're relying on that to live. I had a TV on my bed. They were too busy keeping me alive, and I'm very grateful they did, but they never turned it on. So all I had every minute of every day of the week, every week of the month, was a clock on the wall. It took them 4 weeks to actually put this thing on. And when you're not able to eat, you're not able to drink, you're not able to do anything but have a bed bath and have your 4-hourly medications, there's nothing to look forward to apart from the clock on the wall. The boredom was intense. Then there's the hallucinations. Now, I have to say, I was reading the book, The Guernsey Literary Potato Peel Pie Society. Crap book. But bizarrely, at one point, the lady at the ICU nurse at the bottom of my bed was wheeling me all the way to Guernsey. This is a hallucination. Wheeling me all the way to Guernsey so I could sit in my bed and watch her drink a latte. And then she'd wheel me all the way back again. That's to do with the book that thing came out. But the thing that was more distressing was when my family went away at night from the visitations, the nurses very often would put brown liquid down my cannula. And I was convinced, because we'd all seen the films, what if I'm not worth keeping, turn the machine off. And I used to think they had a sinister look on their face. So I convinced myself that actually they were slowly bumping me off with a graphite drip. Now, there is no such thing as a graphite drip, because I did Google it when I came home. But it was actually to keep my bowels regular, but there we are. They're talking over me. It was the doctors were the worst, the nurses were better. You know, I'd be sitting there and they'd be talking to my relative about me, having a conversation to me through them, never looking at me, never even trying to get the letterboard out, never even attempting to communicate with me, very arrogant. And that's what I was thinking aside, stop talking over me. And I felt worthless. You know, it was about week 6 and my period started again. And on top of everything else and all the indignity, the cramps, the fear, the anxiety, the pain, the hallucinations, there's my mum's she started a monthly. And I'm like, can the indignity get any worse? Just take me now. So I felt really worthless. Now, I have to say, this is not my prettiest moment. If anyone's got an idea as to what was actually going through my mind at the time, I'll give you a clue. I was swearing with my eyes. You can guess the word, I think. But I wanted to play this for you to give you an idea of what I used to... I mean, I'm an overthinker, but in that situation with nothing else, it's very hard not to overthink. And I wanted to share with you a snapshot of the minute I had on my own all the time and what I used to think about. It's me, please pick up the board, please. Can't you see I want to communicate? Look into my eyes, please, just look into my eyes. I'm so scared, I don't sleep, I can't sleep at night. Ow! My bloody leg cramp, please stop. No one knows about it. Just great. Can the indignity get any worse? Now, he told my mum, I've started my monthlies. I need to hug my kids. Where are they? This separation is breaking my heart. Is Woody going to piano? I bet India's skin's in a right mess. Damn! I've shut myself. Oh no, right in front of Rob while he's visiting. Judging by the look on his face, it's just so bad. Oh, this is so embarrassing. Please treat me like you want to be treated yourself. I'm still me inside. Good fun, Kate. Oh my God, that poor man next to me has just died. I've never seen a dead body before. I'm so frightened. What if the nurses are trying to kill me with that graphite drip? I've seen the films. Maybe they think I'm not worth keeping. Please look into my eyes. I need help. I'm so scared. My heart is jumping out of my chest. My children didn't come until 2 weeks after I had the brainstem stroke. The first one that came was my daughter. She was 10, India. She came and she sat by my bedside very bravely with all these tubes and trackies and everything else. And she read to me, she talked to me, she massaged my hands. And she lasted 40 minutes, before which, out of my eye line, she gave Dad the sign that she wanted to time out. Went to Grandma in the waiting area and proceeded to vomit everywhere from the shock of it all. My middle child, Harvey, came to see me. He wasn't feeling like smiling at that point. He tried to put a fake one on. But his first visit to see me, he didn't speak for 48 hours after that. He didn't do anything but just cry silent tears. It only took him 48 hours to grieve for me, because then he was like, right, what's for dinner and where's football, go practice and whatever. But, you know, it was just so amazing to see them. And my little son, Woody, who was only 5 at the time, he used to come and send me videos from primary school, come and massage my hands and feet and my head. It was magical. I just want to ask a question, just out of interest. Of all the people here, if I could tell you could only do one thing, walk or talk, how many of you would stand up because you would want to walk? If you'd like to walk, if I could give you one choice in the world to walk or talk, what would you choose to do? Would you choose to walk? Yeah, okay. So everybody else would choose to talk. You can sit down now, thank you. That's interesting because you can communicate different ways. Maybe if you get an exoskeleton, you can walk, but most people can't afford one of those. For example, so my friend and I, we had this conversation in hospital, and she's a hairdresser, she talks a lot. And I was a 70-mile-a-week fell runner, fairly obsessive. So we completely differed our opinions. She said I'd have to talk, you know, take the walking away, you can push me everywhere. I'm like, there's no way I'd do that, I'd want to walk. Because, you know, I could communicate through blinking, you can communicate through writing, you can communicate through eye gaze. So that's why I would differ, and I would be with you. I'm going to give you an example. My husband, long-suffering husband, if anyone's read the book, he came one day and I used to have leg cramps. And I couldn't relieve them, I couldn't tell anybody I'd got them, I just had to endure them, horrific stuff. So he comes one day with a letterboard, and he was pretty shit at this, to be honest. But he got the letterboard out, and he goes, right, I'll show you on this one. This is a small version of one. He goes, A, all the way to L, and I blink twice. So he goes all the way back, thinking, brilliant, I've got it, to E. And I go all the way back to G. And I'm looking at him thinking, and he goes all the way back to A. I'm thinking, all right, I'll go with this. So I go to C, and I blink twice. And he threw the board down, and he went, oh, Kate, you've lost your marbles. There's no such word as LEGC. Now, if I could have done it, I'd have got up and punched him. But this board has one on. But all they needed, in this technological world we live in, all they needed was a little box that said end of word. You know, it would have made my life and his life a lot less stressful, I can tell you. Now, I just have to finish off the ICU story by telling you that it was week 8 out of 9 I was there, that the only movement I had was a blink, and this thumb moved 2 millimetres. That was it. And my family went absolutely ballistic when this happened, and I was thinking, who gives a... No, what can I do with that? You know. So, I'm going to fast forward. I went to rehab, fortunately. And 6 weeks into being in rehab, I wasn't doing very much, but I felt flickers of life. You couldn't see with your eyes, but I still needed 24-hour care. I still couldn't swallow. I still couldn't do anything. And I was going to this review, my 6-week review. I was in the room with my mum, my husband, my friends, all the nurses, the neurologists, and everything else who looked after me. And I was really excited. I was in this wheelchair with a headrest, and I was dribbling, because I dribbled all the time, like hooch out of, Turner and hooch. And I was really excited because I thought, this is where they ramp things up. Get in this meeting, the rehab consultant said, thank you all for coming. I've nothing more to add. So I took a big gulp, got a little bit panicky. Next to him was the nurse, next to him was the OT, the speech therapist, and the physiotherapist. No change, no significant improvement, no change, no change, no change. So I'm getting really quite distressed at this time. The thing's blowing and I'm getting really emotional. He goes, right, so we need to be discussing discharge to a nursing care home. Okay. That was the point at which I had to be taken out of the room in a complete state, put back to bed. My friend got the letterboard out and I spelt out the words, stand by me. Because that was the point I felt really written off. And certain other things happened then. My 40th birthday was supposed to be climbing Kilimanjaro. I'd booked and paid for it and never got a refund, and obviously that wasn't going to happen. It was in the beginning of June, but this all happened in May. But what I found out was that my husband was going to go on holiday over my 40th birthday to Cornwall, like we always used to do with the kids. They needed a holiday, but of all the weeks. So I couldn't go to Kilimanjaro, my husband was away, and then my mother decides to go on a Thelma and Louise holiday around America for 3 weeks. So my 40th consisted of me in bed with a balloon on the end of it. So I was a bit pissed off. Plus the being written off. So I'd gone from being very, I can't believe my life's come to this, giving up on life, to sod you all, I'm going to believe you, I'll prove you wrong. Me and my best mate, we're going to show you the world. And I used to sit in bed and I spelt out that I'm going to walk out of hospital, I'm going to eat again, I'm going to hug my children, I'm going to be home for Christmas, I'm going to run by my first anniversary. So there, I was really ramped up. And what I would do, instead of just watching Jeremy Kyle or Bargain Hunt or whatever was crap on television, I'd sit in my bed and I'd start willing different parts of my body back to life. Whether it was trying to increase the range of these 2 fingers that had started to come back to life, or introducing this finger, or turning my arm over, or trying to swallow. Or nothing happened on this side, to be honest, for 5 months at all. And just to give you an example, I used to sit and look at my big left toe. And I look at it, willing it, I call it willing. I now know repetitive, frequent, intensive actions is the best way to improve outcomes. And I look at it and I think, come on, bloody move, damn you, just move. And nothing happened for about 3 weeks. And after that amount of time, I got the tiniest flicker. And it was, honestly, it was more euphoric than the communication, because for that moment, I just had the belief that actually I might well walk out of hospital, and I might well run again, I might well have an independent life again. And then that just fueled me to do everything, whether it's the oral motor and the mouth and the tongue exercises and everything else. And the picture above of me in the middle there is taken from a clip from YouTube of me actually walking out of hospital. It's a very emotional video. Taken, and I'd actually walked 5 times further than I'd ever walked before up till that point. And the picture obviously below is hugging my children. So, that repetitive, frequent, intensive, the goals were phenomenal. I did it every day, 400 times a week. I mean, I know there's some research out from Japan that says rehab should happen 7 days a week, not 5 days a week. It never stopped with me. But I have to tell you a really, really fascinating, amazing example. My son Woody and my kids came to visit me one Friday, and at this point I was able, if someone held some paper, I could actually communicate, not from blinking but from writing. And my son, my 5-year-old son Woody, said to me, "Oh Mum, don't write my name, say my name." Now I just wanted to, they came twice a week, I just wanted to impress them, do something for them, because I could do very little. And no one had ever said to me in 5.5 months to even try and attempt to speak. And I just said spontaneously, "Ugh." Right, but that wasn't much, but that was enough for them to be in floods of tears. And the rest of the family were like, "Right, say my name, say my name." And then, of course, I've got like Harvey, which that wasn't bad, it came out Harvey. But then Mark and India, it's like, no way. So anyway, they went home. I did what I did with my running. I was obsessive, constant practice, all weekend on my own, repetitively, frequently, on my own. Monday morning, my favourite nurse Oliver came in the room with a box. Morning, Kate. And I went, oh, and he dropped the box. He cried. He said, it's moments like this I came into nursing. And I'm like, are you all right? What's going on? But turns out, the speech therapist, he ran off to get the speech therapist. She came down and said, speak, speak. And I went, oh. And she cried. And I'm thinking, what's going on? And turned out that only 3 or 4 weeks earlier, I think, she'd said to my husband on the phone, who was trying to get my trachea out, he said, look, we need to get the trachea out so Kate can start speaking. She goes, Mark, he was on a mountain bike ride. You do know Kate will never speak again, don't you? I didn't know that, which is why the reaction. But an expectation imposing their beliefs on me, you know, I think it's a big issue, actually. And you know what? I have to show you this because the day before my first stroke anniversary, I did run again. It was a shuffle, really, but you know what? I'm calling it a run.
Off we go! Go on, Kate! Brilliant, Kate!
Oh, fantastic!
Very emotional. But I have to tell you very quickly, this guy here was my stroke of luck. When I left hospital with a community stroke team. All they wanted to do for me, 3.5 months before my stroke anniversary, they got me sitting up and standing up, sitting to standing and sitting again. So is that me? And where's that feedback coming from? Is it that one? Shall I move it over here? Sorry. And I wanted to run by my first anniversary. They were used to dealing with 70-year-old stroke survivors. So I thought they were lowering my expectations yet again. Okay? So I sacked her. And I then actually blagged free gym membership because I was deluded into thinking all I needed to do for my wheelchair was to get strong again, go to the gym a few times, and I'd be up running again and walking again. Went to the gym, and he said, in return for your marketing expertise, we'll give you a free gym membership for you and the family. He said, but I think you're going to run by your first anniversary. He said, so I'm going to throw in my very best personal trainer, Mike Lee. And do you know what? This bloke didn't know anything about locked in, as I didn't. We worked really hard, both of us. And you know, in 6 weeks, he got me out of a wheelchair onto crutches, and another 6 weeks off crutches altogether. And then it's that run. So, you know, that was my stroke of luck, but then I probably needed a little bit of luck. Now, it won't surprise you this, I got into quite a lot of trouble in hospital. I did break some rules, but you know what? I'm not really one for rules. Give you an example. I was nil by mouth, and the only pleasure I had was to have apple juice from a pot on a sponge, which was supposed to have been squeezed out, so it just got the flavour of the apple juice around my mouth. Well, the first time I had it was my best friend. She's as mischievous as I am. Neither of us knowing that 35 mils of fluid would have drowned me. The point was she'd come and she got this apple pot, and where she was supposed to wring it out, she put it in my mouth with it all on, and my tongue clamped down because I'd not had food for 6 months. You know, I was like gagging for something. And I can tell you, in 15 minutes, I'd managed to drink the whole pot on that sponge. And I got big trouble for that. I didn't get another apple juice after that, funnily enough. The other one that's really funny, quite early on in rehab, after my trachea had come out, there was a lot of risk of pneumonia. I had it quite a lot. And there was a risk of it having to be put back in over my literal dead body. I didn't want it back in. And I had this sat monitor on my toe. And my friends, Amy and Alison, came to see me one day, and I looked at them, looked at the sat monitor, looked at them, and so they obviously figured out, as you would, it was obviously hurting me. So they moved this thing off, which was testing to see whether I dropped below 80 sats, which would mean that, you know, I was in a pretty bad way. Anyway, they took this thing off, the whole thing alarmed, and all the nurses came shooting round. And there's Amy with it in her hand like that, and I couldn't move anything. She, what are you doing? What are you doing? And both Alice and Amy went, it was her. And then, I mean, who gets a verbal warning in hospital? The first time I got fitted up with the electric wheelchair, I decided that I was going for a spin outside. So I went out the fire escape, someone opened it for me, but then I didn't stop. I just kept going into full throttle on this thing. Anyway, I got the ward manager running behind me. He's quite a hefty guy, running after me, going, Kate, stop, stop. And of course, well, I've referred to it in the book, so I'll say it again. I was giving him the rods all the way, and not intending to come back. I thought it was all very funny. Ha, ha, ha. Went back to bed. When my husband came to visit me that night, he didn't come for an hour because he was being dished out a verbal warning. If I got another one, I'd be off the ward. So, anyway. And then the stairs. I'll tell you another one that I got in really big trouble about. They wanted me to go home eventually to a room downstairs with a bathroom. Now, what you don't know is 6 months earlier from my stroke, I'd had a brand new open plan, all singing or dancing, kitchen put in the house. And it would have to be destroyed to home me downstairs because they weren't taking me upstairs in rehab. Again, managing my expectations. It was okay for them to send me home living downstairs, but not for me. So one home visit, my stepdad manhandled me upstairs and he said he'd only do it if I didn't tell anybody. And I had a little plan, so of course I agreed. And I did stick to my word for a week, but I did share it with the neurophysio at the nurses' station in future and said, you know, suppose I told you I'd been upstairs. Ho, 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 laugh, laugh, laugh. And he'd say, well, I'll just say you're lying. And I just laughed even more, and he knew then. But you know what? The very next day, they got me on the blocks in rehab going upstairs. And I never had to touch my kitchen. So, you know, sometimes it pays to be a bit mischievous and deceitful. And I think the moral of the story is, on the few examples I've given you, is this. The psychologist took my friend out of the room, unbeknown to me, and she said, we have a problem. Kate's expectations are here, and ours are here. You need to bring Kate down to us. And she said, no, damn you, you need to go up to her. And I think it's really important that in whatever you do in life, if you have an idea, don't let anybody deviate you from that. You know, it's your expectations, your life. You could live it the way you want to live it. And if you're, I mean, when I indicated that I wanted to walk off the ward, the nurses laughed. I mean, I saw it as more of a challenge that they laughed, but they did, you know, or eating again. I mean, I had to sign a disclaimer to say that I'd have the peg out because they wanted me to go home with the peg to then have it out in 6 months or so time. And I thought, I'll go home and I'll get forgotten about. And I want it out now. So I had to sign a disclaimer to say that if I choked to death, it was my fault. But I didn't, fortunately. But I have to say that, you know, everything I've just said to you didn't come. The successes I had came with an awful lot of failure, doubts, criticism, sacrifices, hard work, huge risks, late nights. I mean, for example, the first time I got 10 sips, all I got in ICU for the first few weeks was 10 sips of Earl Grey tea. When you have nothing else, they wouldn't even brush your teeth most of the time because you weren't eating, but that was the flavour of mint in your mouth was just amazing. To have that taken away from me, it was honestly like someone could have taken my arm. It was that big a deal for me. And that's what happened when I went to rehab, because they basically said anybody with a trachea can't eat or drink, period. So it destroyed me because that was my only pleasure. My video fluoroscopy to check whether or not my food was going down my gullet and not my windpipe. I failed the first one. I worked tirelessly on my tongue, my oral motor and everything else for 6-7 weeks until my second one. And the most insensitive clinician behind this glass screen, bear in mind I was able to lip read at the time because I've learned how to do that. I sat there thinking, I've put all this work in, please, I can eat again. If I pass this test, I pass it. So it's a big deal for me. And she sat there, and within 1 minute, she went to her colleague, no change there, next. And I was seeing all this, and it absolutely destroyed me, because I also knew that if I was going to go for the third test, then that would be at least 6 or 8, 9, 10 weeks from now, and that's another, all those weeks without any food or drink. And it destroyed me to the point I refused the third one, and I just took the risk. The post-traumatic stress disorder, when I came home from hospital, you know, we talk about this with servicemen, but, you know, give you an idea. I would be in my wheelchair in Sainsbury's, but I'd be so convinced that that was a dream, because my reality was that I was in a Northern General Hospital completely paralysed, that I had to self-harm just in order to prove to myself that I was in Sainsbury's. I also missed my daughter's first day at secondary school. She was at a very difficult age at 10. It broke my heart, broke her heart. So the isolation, the depression, the loneliness when you get home, because I was left from hospital with nothing. No emotional support, no mental well-being, no with a physio. Everything I've done to get well has been through my own steam. But the loneliness and the fact that you look normal, but actually you're caught between your old self and your new self, and you don't quite know what to do with your life now, because you thought your life was going to go on this trajectory, and it's actually gone on that trajectory, and you don't really know where you fit anymore. And the parenting. I was doubly incontinent in a wheelchair. I got 3 kids who hadn't seen me for 9 months. And you know what? They were messed up. They still are. You know, the effects of this brain injury is huge on the whole family. But no support. It's been horrific. I do have to say, though, that for the first 2 weeks I came home and it was magical. You know, the kids all rotated each night for 2 weeks sleeping with me. It was just so lovely. But after 2 weeks, it was like, Mum's back, but not as we knew her. Because I was different. You're going to be, aren't you? And as I say, I'm caught between this old life and new life. You know, it's really difficult with no one to advise, to help. You know, I told you this story about, you know, the lady wanted me to practice sitting up, sitting down. It's out of sync, this. So I told you I fired them. That was Mike Lee again. But I have to tell you that, do you know, just 21 months after my brainstem stroke, I didn't do a 10-yard shuffle, because I never stopped after that. I did this, which was 1.5 miles, albeit I ran like a horse, but I just want to show you that I did it.
That's amazing, Kate.
So, you know, I did have big goals. I did dream really big. I didn't let anybody lower my expectations, and I did it. The fact of the matter is, as soon as I did this, I fell off an emotional cliff, but that's a different story. I, within 3 months, set up a charity, Fighting Strokes. Give you an idea what happened. This lady here, she'd been locked in severely for 17.5 years. As you can see, she's in a wheelchair with a headrest. All she can do is eye gaze, no food, no nothing, 17.5 years. She came to me on Skype, because I've been in the papers a lot of the time. It's about 3 years ago. And I said to her, Christine, she had the carer with her, move your mouth. And she went, ah. And I said, look, I'm not being funny, and you have been like this far longer than I ever was, but you've got more voluntary movement than I ever had. Would you like me to get you some help? She lives in County Durham. She indicated yes. I got off the phone and I rang Neural Pathways up in County Durham, and I said, listen, it's me. And they knew who I was, which was a help. I said, right, I've got a lady who could be a guinea pig. She'll work really hard. She's very committed. She really wants to try and improve, but she's got no money. What if I give her as a guinea pig to you? And just imagine if you get any progress with this girl after 17.5 years, just imagine the kudos to you as a rehabilitation unit. No, they said yes. I can't believe I blagged another thing there. Anyway, with it, they worked really, really hard. Within 6 months, she was on a plinth, able to lean forward, back. She's in a standing frame, having aquatherapy. She's actually even voicing words. Only a month and a half ago, she's voicing words. Amazing. She's had a peg removed. She's had God knows how many CTs and MRI scans, because she's starting to get normal patterns of development. And all the collapsed veins she's had from the constant intravenous drip, they're all building back up again. The neurologist is scratching their head. But you know what the most fascinating thing about this story is, and I can say it from someone who hasn't eaten, is that within 2.5 years, she's now had to put herself on a diet, because she's eating 3 meals a day and she's able to have Costa coffee and everything else. Can anybody imagine after 19 and a half years nil by mouth what it would be like to then eat again? This girl here, slightly out of sync. This girl here is 23, she had exactly what I had. I went to go and visit her in January in Poland. I spent 3.5 hours by her bedside, inspiring her, giving her the belief to try, giving her some exercises, practical advice and help. She'd seen me in my book, which was the first thing, and I went as a surprise, and she couldn't believe it. Anyway, I was there with her, inspiring her and her boyfriend and her dad. And do you know what? Within 10 hours of leaving her bedside, her boyfriend sent me that video I've just shown you. It's slightly out of sync. And because when I was with her bedside, she was able to move her hand like that. And in just 10 hours, she moved it all the way over. And it was the start of her trying to reach and grasp and take a more, basically, she wants to wipe her own bottom, you know, as you would, and do your own hair and everything else. But since then, she's now moving her arms, moving her legs, and she's really making a huge amount of progress. But that little bit of belief counted such a lot. And I just want to ask the question, typically, on average, how long do patients have to wait to start their rehabilitation after their injury? Has anyone got an answer for me? Could you answer that? How long's too long?
Well, they can actually start having contractions within days. They can start having contractions within days. They have to start rehabilitation straight away after a brain injury.
But that is right, and I totally agree with you.
In reality, it takes much longer, if they get it at all.
So potentially would no rehabilitation start until the end of the assessment process? And how long will that process take from injury to how long will it take?
Depends where you are.
What, 2 years, 18 months?
I'm not in the NHS, so...
But you know, from my point of view, that's, you know, in terms of outcome, sorry, did end.
For me,
Yeah.
it was 20 months.
20
I was in hospital, the physio just stood behind the window, let me try it. As soon as I got out of hospital, it was the community rehab team. The first day they met me said, stand up and see what you can do. I walked. 20 months after getting out of hospital.
Incredible. Well, well, you'll know, and I know as well, that, you know, to start rehab immediately after is going to give you the best chance of outcomes at the end of it. And I asked that question because I did a keynote in Bush Company earlier this week, and they were saying to me in the coffee breaks that the period of time from the injury to the actual rehabilitation can be 18 months, can be 2 years, can be 3 years. And, you know, that really upset me because, you know, I know how important it is to get treatment early on. And is there a stopgap that we can put in between, you know, advise patients and their families to set up to improve those outcomes? Because at the end of the day, that patient's got to live, and they must be in limbo, and as a patient myself. So I just throw that out there, and it's an area that I really want to try and do a bit more with case managers and so on, exploring, finding the answers out from you guys, the experts, as to what you think you could do, what's in your control to make that process faster. I have, as a result, in the last 5 years, pioneered 2 pieces of research that I'm really proud of. One is the electric stimulation. I was convinced when they put it on this arm in hospital for me experimentally, and they used to put it on this arm, which didn't move, just to rest this arm. After 3 weeks, this arm started moving. And I've always been convinced that electrical stimulation, not FES, ES, could help stroke survivors, normal stroke survivors who've got limb impairment. And I managed on Twitter to persuade an OT researcher from the University of Nottingham to go in with the idea. And within a week of tweeting, she'd written up the brief. Within 6 months, she'd written up a full grant bid. And within a year, she'd been given £250,000 from the RFPB to run the research, which is currently running at the moment. It's a feasibility research. And the other piece of research I've pioneered is, again with the University of Nottingham, is some peer mentoring research. And having been at the NHS Confederation annual conference this week, that's a big area that they're pursuing at the moment. So I'm really proud of that as well. And really, that's what I've been doing with my charities, advocacy and peer mentoring and practical advice and belief and support in a way that no official structures have ever been doing, and I did it all voluntarily. So I started writing my book the day I left hospital. Now this was a legacy to my children. Because I'd been running around Chatsworth one minute and the next minute on life support, half dead, kind of realised that really life's, can just go like that. And I wanted them to know about me and my life in case that happened. So I started writing this book the day I left with the ghostwriter. I'm very, very proud of it. It's become internationally published. It's got it's got hundreds of reviews on Amazon. And it gives people a practical guide all over the world as to how to even approach locked in. But more than that, it's a real inspirational story. I mean, I have to let you into a secret. A guy from America, nothing to do with stroke, nothing to do with locked in, he wrote to me and said, "Kate, you are phenomenal. You're an inspiration, blah, blah, blah." He said, "But I'd absolutely hate to be married to you." So there were reasons I don't need to go into, but anyway, I'm very honest in it. I told you I set up the charity, an advocacy charity, global digital charity, really proud of it. I have had some fun over the years. Have you heard this before? Right, I was on the stepper at the gym, and I got an email blip through, and I thought, oh, I think I'll just stop that. I'll stop now and have a look at my email. Thinking I'd just go pause it. Anyway, it's the Deputy Prime Minister on the email. I thought, oh, I think I'll just get off. So I got off the stepper at the gym and opened this thing 2 weeks before the Olympic opening ceremony. I would like to invite you to be a VIP guest to the Guildhall and the Olympic opening ceremony from Nick Clegg. Right? I'd seen him 10 months earlier in a surgery to try and promote my charity. He'd not forgotten me, which I thought was amazing. But anyway, so I was I was getting all ready, all excited. We were going down on the train. I went to Caramel and got my dress. It was sort of this sort of length. And my friend, I said, I feel a bit porky at the moment. So my friend said, get some Spanx. Right? Never worn them before. Okay, I'll do that. Put them on. And get to London, get changed, put them on. They're crotchless. Oh my God. Right. Anyway. So this picture of this man that most people don't like, and I don't particularly at all, has a new meaning because I didn't sit the whole time in the Guildhall because I daren't, because I got this short dress on. The Spanx only just were above it. So I was stood talking to him and thinking, I've got no knickers on. But just as I thought I'd got through that all right, I didn't sit down, I was sort of standing all the time. I got to the opening ceremony, didn't realise, got to go upstairs. So, forget Rowan Atkinson, forget David Beckham, because the only thing I remember from this is Spanx. But it was a great experience, really good. And I've done some stuff with Newsnight, which was really enjoyable, about rehabilitation in care homes and what happens to people when they do an undercover film. So I've had some interesting experiences, even Cunard. I got invited to go on Cunard, which is a real treat. Keep hoping I'm going to get invited back, but watch this space. And then most recently, last December, I did a TEDx talk on voicing inner thoughts, why it's important for patients. Did you know that 20 to 40% of patients are misdiagnosed as vegetative when they're actually unconscious, i.e. they're fully aware of their environment and their situation, but they're unable to give any signal to communicate. It's quite a scary stat that 40% to 40% of people are misdiagnosed. So I gave a talk on why it's so important that we have that and used a few examples. I'll give you one. Martin Pistorius, otherwise known as Ghost Boy. It's going to blow your mind. I hope you'll go and click on so I get more interested about TEDx. But a guy called Martin Pistorius, 13 years he was completely locked in, considered vegetative. After 10 years, his mind came back to life. So, he talks about in his book about this is quite distressing, you know, his mum and dad had lots of distress because he was supposed to die within a few years. That was what they were told, and he was still there. And at 20 odd as an older man, he was still being wheeled in front of Barney to watch copious editions of Barney reruns. He hated Barney. But worst of all, you know, his mum and dad were arguing one day, and thinking he couldn't understand, she blew off at him and said, "It's all your fault, you should have died." You know. And he heard all that, had to deal with all that. But what was worse was for a couple of years after his mind came back to life, and he was aware of everything, he was physically, emotionally and sexually abused at the hands of some of his carers, unable to tell anybody about it. And it took his reflexology or someone like that to figure out that there's somebody inside. And he's gone on to do a TED talk. You might want to go and see it. It's really interesting, actually. So he's in part of my core talk, but he has his own one, which I would recommend. Now, I ought to think, I hope you've picked up on it, yeah, there's expectations, we mustn't lower them in any part of our life, but there is a totally invisible success factor in my story, and a lot of the stories, some people recover, some people improve, some people don't, that's a fact. There's no promises, just possibilities, they can be good or bad. But the ones who've done really well is because they, like me, have had self-belief. You know, and I never wavered. Once my mind was on board, I was only ever going to walk again, talk again, be there with my kids again. So I'll just leave a question with you, 2 questions that you might want to think about. If you had a magic wand, how would you speed up the assessment system, i.e. from injury to rehabilitation? And let's get it back real. Is there anything you can do that is in your control? So the first question is, if you could do anything, what would you do? And the second question is, what could you do right now? And I think that's an area I'm going to really work on with organisations like yourself, because I've done a lot of work with the NHS and they've gone down this model. They're never going to have any more money, never going to have any more resources, never going to have more people doing things. And what they're doing is they're going on coaching courses and they're coaching everybody. I've been on the NHS one as well. And it's about, we have a problem, describe the situation, describe what you would do if you could do anything in the world, and then hone it in, right, okay, out of all that, what is it you could do in the next 3 months, 6 months or whatever? And that's how, throwing it back to the people who know better, how could you make your job better? You know, because they've worked out the NHS, people do the job, they're more likely to come out with the better ideas on what to do and take ownership of it. And I think it's the only approach really, this coaching idea. And just before I finish, because I've just literally got a couple of minutes,
Kate Allatt from Dore in South Yorkshire had a severe brainstem stroke and then went on to develop locked-in syndrome. Doctors said she'd never walk or talk again, but the mother of 3 defied their predictions.
How many people suffer from locked-in syndrome, and how hard is it to recover?
Well, it's actually pretty rare.
My speech therapist was absolutely brilliant. However, she did say a week before my tracheotomy came out that Kate would never speak again.
Off we go! Go on, you! Brilliant day.
Fantastic!
When I was in the coma, I was totally unconscious. There was no Disney-fied or anything like that. It was just my life lost 3 days. End of. The psychologist took my friend out of the room, unbeknown to me, and she said, "We have a problem. Kate's expectations are here and ours are here. You need to bring Kate down to us. And she said, no, damn you, you need to go up to her.